We are back on the Sopranos podcast for season 6, episode 8, Small Time. You gotta grow up. You're not a kid anymore. That's a quote from Tony Soprano in season 6, episode 8 of The Sopranos, entitled Johnny Cakes. This episode's written by Diane Frolov and Andrew Schneider and directed by Tim Van Patten. I suspect I know what the general reaction is going to be from some of the folks here.
You don't know.
I know. I think some of the folks here are going to love the New Jersey stuff, not so much the New Hampshire stuff. That's my prediction.
All right, maybe you know.
Or maybe that's how Jordan feels. Listen, Johnny Cakes, I thought it was a pretty fantastic and intense hour of the show. I actually thought, and I'm willing to defend this position when we get to the various scenes, that this was actually Joe Ganascoli's strongest episode as Vito. So let's break it down. I'm Chris D'Amato.
I'm Lily D'Amato.
I'm Paul Mancini.
And I'm Jordan Hugh.
And this is Johnny Cakes, in which AJ makes a very rash decision and creates one of the strongest scenes he's had with Tony in a while. And we also have some action out in the rural New Hampshire, where
we
Vito...
sure do.
But and a very interesting development also on the home front with this redevelopment and the gentrification, the selling out of the old neighborhood is one of the more fascinating threads of this. The Jamba Juice, and then of course where that all leads with Julianna. Overall, strong hour. Whether you like the Vito stuff or not, I thought this was a pretty solid hour of the show that drove the action forward in an interesting way. Any initial impressions or thoughts on this?
Well, I liked the Jersey stuff, and I didn't like the New Hampshire stuff as much.
Wow.
I know. Surprising. Listen, I think this idea that we've been pursuing now for this whole season of, hey, closeted gay gangster, right, trying to live this life, escaping from this life, maybe trying to consider a new life, that's interesting. It can be interesting. It's nuanced at times. It creates a great discussion. And I think when this was airing, these were good discussions that were being had. We're now 20 years later. We're in a different culture. Maybe that has shaped my feelings on this a little bit. Maybe I should really be more mindful of the time in which this was airing, that maybe this was a bigger deal. For me, I am pretty bored by the New Hampshire stuff. And not because I think necessarily that these people are bad actors or that the New Hampshire storyline is bad. I just seem to not care about it as much. I don't know why. We can investigate that, I guess, right?
Yeah, we'll do that.
The Jersey side of stuff in this episode is explosively good, right? I love the AJ stuff, and we just did an episode on Luxury Lounge, right? Talking about our consumerist culture and how the little guy gets kind of squeezed out of it. This episode follows up on that, right? With this whole Jamba Juice versus Caputo's poultry farm, right? And it's these little places that kind of make an old neighborhood what it is, and you take away its identity when you move in something like a Jamba Juice. That stuff interests me, but that could just be me, right? Other people watching this episode might have been really more invested in the New Hampshire stuff. It's an odd split. I think I didn't negotiate the split as well as a viewer.
I really like this episode, rounding out the D'Amatos liking this episode. I like the whole thing, including the New Hampshire. I think the New Hampshire stuff is actually kind of compelling. I'm also a hopeless romantic, so I find myself kind of rooting for Vito to be okay. That's just kind of my thing. He's vulnerable, he's trying something new, he's finding himself, and so I'm always going to kind of push for that. And I think it's sweet in a kind of strange way. And as much as I've always found Vito to be pretty reprehensible and one of the lesser likable gangsters when he's in New Jersey, I find myself rooting for him in New Hampshire, right? I don't want the alternative, I guess. So, and I think the stuff with Johnny Cakes is interesting, and I think whether it's clunky or not, I think it's neat to expose this kind of storyline to the full audience of The Sopranos, especially at this time that it was airing.
Very well said, Paul.
Yeah, I guess I kind of see this episode as dynamic and interesting, even as it's a bridge episode in many ways. We're threading through some stories. I doubt anybody thinks that the Vito storyline is now settled. We understand that we're going to come back to it. Things with AJ are still left up in the air, but that's okay. I liked that we were checking in on these different storylines. I also found the stuff in New Jersey more interesting than in New Hampshire, but that was to be expected. There are some interesting things with Vito here and there, but to me the most interesting element of the Vito storyline is not any scenes with him, it's the political implications back in New York and New Jersey, where we actually get some scenes with Tony and Phil, which are interesting. I think most important are Tony and AJ by the car and Tony and the young woman, Julianna. In terms of my experience of the episode and what the implications are for the characters going forward. And again, I think they're doing different kind of shit, different storytelling. They are surprising me in 6A. They're really trying wild stuff. So I admire that.
Most wild among them, AJ getting rid of the Van Helsing hair, I think.
He looks good.
A happy medium, right, between the short kind of crew cut hair AJ and the Van Helsing.
It's a good length.
Yeah,
It's hip. That would even be a good length now. It's good.
Yeah. No, I like this episode. I think it deals with some really compelling stuff. I personally found the oddly enough, I guess the sub-thread of the Jamba Juice plot, which is Patsy and Bert Gervaisi in their North Ward protection racket. I really latched onto that very strongly.
Delightful.
I thought it was it's a fascinating premise. It's like right around the time when all of these companies are really expanding. Your big coffee shops, your Starbucks, your Jamba Juice, your even fast food chains and things of that nature.
Right, the homogenization of American consumerist culture
was really exploding aggressively around this time, and somebody had the idea of like, well, how does a gangster shake down a Starbucks?
Right.
It's great. It's a good idea.
Not well.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're... Shame on them for having no vision. These guys are like both over 50. This 20-year-old, this 20-something kid who is managing this place knows better than them how a corporation would respond. They got like 5,000 stores in the Northeast. I don't think they'd feel anything. Kid's exactly right. What are they doing in there?
Right. Well,
Unreal.
The I would say implied, but actually the direct threat they make on him, on the manager, is just they would replace me. They would just get someone else. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. No, it's good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, the episode starts out with some of the good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
This is hot sexual action here at the at the Soprano house. The episode opens up with Tony and Carmela in full coitus. And Carmela seems more concerned with Tony's safety and health and his incision than any particular, But it's, it's nice to see them being intimate, and this has been something that Tony. We find out that he's back in the game in the sex department. It's been off the table for him for a little while, recovering from the shooting, and Tony's back. We're gonna get more on Tony's libido returning as this episode goes on, but that's really what we're struck with here, is that he's back.
First of a number of scenes that underlines a connection between them, but it's not precisely hot romantic.
Right.
There is a connection. They care about each other. He says at one point outright, "You're always looking out for me." It's more that vibe.
Yeah. She says it's nice to have this again. They're laying in bed. It's kind of sweet. And we hear the drums. So it's a little too good for AJ. AJ's playing drums. Comes out. AJ's got some guys leaving the house. Your amigos with the baggy pants. He's looking to sell the drums, which you can see kind of upsets Tony. At multiple points this episode, Tony seems really disappointed by AJ selling these drums. It hurts him. That scene later on when he's looking out the window at the drums getting loaded up in the truck and Carmela has to like rub his shoulder. It's actually very sad. But they have a big argument with AJ here. You've made me get this crappy job. Don't I deserve some kind of life? I can't register till second semester.
Yeah, they made him get that crappy job.
Yeah.
I suppose they did, but like...
He's living there, right? Yeah.
Needs,
if he lived anywhere else, he'd need a job.
He's a snot.
Yeah, but he's given it to them, and undeservedly. I think he's got it pretty damn good, this setup he has right now. Tony's going to get into it in the therapy scene, but point is, AJ is clearly going through something here, and he's asking for money, and he's not happy with the situation. They want him to go back to school. He wants other things. So AJ's in unrest. That's the point here. And causing friction on the home front. Cut to New Hampshire. Big house fire out there, and it is Jim, of course, Johnny Cakes, the guy at the diner that he's been interacting with, is on the volunteer fire department, and he is, as the episode description gives, wowed by an act of heroism, and Jim goes in and rescues this kid out of the fire.
Hubba hubba.
And he's starry-eyed. We can see that whatever initial attraction was there was definitely magnified. He's very in awe of that.
More thrilling than reading Ab Attack.
Can you three tell me if I'm being an asshole? Alright, Jim rides in. Okay. He's, first of all, imagine what Jim looks like. Big, handsome dude. He's got a handlebar mustache. He happens to be gay, right? Incidentally. Okay. He's riding in. He rides in on his Harley in his fireman gear. Okay. He runs into a house that is, I'm going to characterize it as hopelessly burning. Okay. There happens to be a child still inside. No one else is going in for this child. He just got there. He barely knows what the shot is, right? Mm. He's going in. He rescues the kid. The kid comes out of it like, oh, he's a hero. And Vito is there, and he witnesses this, and he's enamored of him, and he already was very attracted to this man. And later at the bar, which we'll get to in a moment, I know, right? It turns out a bunch of these other firemen, maybe all of the other volunteer firemen, are also gay. Doesn't this all seem a little fake? Does this pass the smell test for everybody here? That this is a slice of life that is real? Does this whole New Hampshire thing and the gym thing and everything feel like fake to anybody? This feels like a fireman's calendar came to life that was being sold at a charity event in this New Hampshire town, and Vito is a part of that. Is this intentional, or are we supposed to buy this as something that is really happening? Because to me, it's so crazy.
Do you mean, have I thought about whether or not Vito is, imagining this?
No, I don't think he's really imagining it, but I just think
the show's presenting it as something that's happening. The question is, does it pass audience muster as, is this possible?
Just everything up there in, I'm so sorry, is the town's name Dartford?
Dartford, yeah. Just
strikes me as so fake. And not just because it's not Jersey and it's not of the show, just I don't know that this is real. He might as well save a Dalmatian puppy from a tree in the same scene, right? And then have the shirtless orgy with the men in leather in the same scene, because it just seems like everything's just born out of Vito's imagination of this guy. So, it just all is so much for me.
So here's where I think it's coming from, and why I'm going to push back gently on this. Not that you're necessarily wrong. It is a paradise for him in that sense. It's almost too perfect. And that, to me, is sort of the idea. Live free or die. This is a place that, it's the old too good to be true thing, right? First of all, we're not done, so we don't know where this is all going yet. But it's the idea that he has found something that is, ostensibly, could really work for him had he been born and grew up in different circumstances. It's the idea of yeah, this is almost too good to be true. Holy shit, how can this get fucked up, right?
It also, I don't think you're an asshole to answer
you're not an asshole
initial question. I do think the New Hampshire stuff is meant to look like a romantic comedy, mm-hmm. right? And that's how it would go in a Nora Ephron film, right? It's all kind of perfect. Sure. Right? You think of your classic Sleepless in Seattle. They happen to be on the, at the same time, and all of that works out. And so, to me, as it is the romanticized version of it, we don't see things work out like this in The Sopranos very, very often. However, that's why I'm not bothered by it, because it's like we've kind of taken a shift.
Okay.
And the show does that sometimes, right? We have a whole episode where, like, Tony's in purgatory, and then there's,
right.
the episodes where, what is it, From Where to Eternity, where Chris may have gone to hell, and, like, so they're in a romantic comedy. I don't know. I think my argument's a little shallow, but...
No, it's a better take. I stopped just short of adding to my criticism that Jim is really good looking, and Vito is really not. And the reason why I stopped just short of that is because if I'm taking this as a romantic comedy, listen, Meg Ryan's a 10. Billy Crystal's a pretty good 5.
Well,
right. A lot of these romantic comedies, the man especially, a lot less attractive than the woman. That happens a lot. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to look past that part. Let me look at everything else in this town. And it still comes off to me as very fakey.
let me throw this out there. Maybe this is a great question to get to the bottom of exactly what you're asking about, Jordan. Because I've had this question watching this, and I'm curious to see what you all say about this. It's obvious what, even as a straight man, what Vito sees in Jim.
Right.
What does Jim see in Vito?
I think he sees that the script needs to happen, and we can't have it another way. What else does he do? It would be... I wish Vito had done something amazing that Jim had seen to make him notice this man, other than just like, he's kind of a schlubby stranger from somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. I'm going to stretch because in some ways I agree with you. They could have done a little bit better of giving the why for Vito. However, Vito's a bear, which is a legitimate type, right? And so maybe...
Can you explain for those who may not know what a bear is?
A bear in gay culture is a body type of a hairy, chubbier man.
Yeah, or like a burly guy, too.
Guy, too. There's like a manliness to a bear. Mm. And he's a little, forgive me for saying this, but like a little exotic in rural New Hampshire, right? He's from New Jersey, so he's from not New York City, but adjacent, right? He's got a bit of an accent. He's a writer. I mean, like, is it ever better than that in a romantic comedy?
No, it's not.
And so, like, again, I think that's kind of where we're
it's
going.
It's often acted way better in a romantic comedy.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Okay.
In that, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely true. It's just that, I mean, where does the storyline end? With them fucking in the field, okay. But just before then, Vito has to, like, reach out his hand and, like, touch the guy and say, sometimes you tell a lie so long, you don't know when to stop. You don't know if it's safe. And Ganascoli does the best that he can in that scene, but it's as good as it's going to get. I mean, I don't know. I think all these ideas are fascinating, but before Moby Dick is anything else, it's a story about a whale. And this storyline is about Vito before anything else, and it's not that compelling because the writing is like, I don't know, a little something here and there, and the central performance is that guy. And it's stiff.
I mean, I've seen Kevin James in countless vehicles where he has to be with, like, a beautiful woman, but I always kind of buy it because Kevin James is, like, very charming and, like, funny, and you think, like, oh, okay, maybe he's not the ideal of masculinity, right, but this woman finds him funny, and he's bringing some kind of spark of joy to her life. Vito, I'm like, Jim's life seems pretty fucking complete. Maybe he's lonely, but I don't see Vito sparking something in him. I don't know. Maybe they just left that part out, or maybe we're not supposed to care about that. I don't know. Maybe I've been taught to look for the wrong things in these narratives.
No, I wouldn't invalidate that. But also, you got a small town vibe. He's probably been through all those firefighters. I don't know, like...
That's for sure.
True.
He's somebody new.
Johnny Cakes, we've had that.
Right.
We don't want that again.
Well, let's be honest, right? And so you got this new guy in town who he's catching a vibe from, and it's like... I don't disagree in terms of the quality of how it goes. I'm just not as mad about it.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? You're stuck with Vito. Like, they've had him on since, what, season 2 or 3 as,
one, technically.
Technically one, but
background, essentially background. He gets bigger and bigger roles, and now they want to make him this big thing. They can't just get another actor.
Yeah.
Well, no, as I understand it, the gay storyline was in large part his idea. And it was
interesting.
And it was a way to pull Vito forward.
Yeah.
This also my criticism. It shows. It shows that it was reverse engineered to bring this character up, and it kind of plays the way that it does. But yeah.
I know it can't have been anyone else in the crew, because I can't even imagine it, frankly, with anyone else in the crew, but I often find myself wishing it was someone else in the crew. I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, imagine somebody like, obviously, Joe Pantoliano was amazing as Ralphie, but imagine if he had been outed as the gay gangster, and it would have been a completely different thing.
I mean, you've
right,
got
though
Joey
none of them
Pants.
would have been surprised.
Right. I don't know. I see what you're saying. It really... So it sounds to me, ultimately, at the end of the day, like whether or not you're sold by the performance, ultimately, right? It's is the thesis that for you folks who are a little more opposed to it than the D'Amato side here, is the theory that a different actor might have been able to pull this off, or is it a writing problem for you?
Oh boy, I don't think that's a really hard question to answer. I don't know. I've never looked at Vito and said there's no way this guy is gay, because I know too many gay people in my personal life that I never would have thought that of otherwise. And now, as a result of life experience, I've been enlightened to that. Hey, you don't know what people have going on in their private lives. Anybody could be anything. So that part of it is fine for me, and the part that is Vito and that Vito is gay is fine. I guess I'm just having a hard time with how the story's handled, so I guess I'll put it at the writing. And I think maybe a different actor could have sold forgive me for saying somewhat poor writing a little better. I guess that's where I'd go with this. I don't know.
I guess I would too. It's maybe it's just like the rare B+ on The Sopranos. I don't know. But I'm not comfortable anymore with the cavalier, not with this storyline. I'm not comfortable with the cavalier attitude that it's the Sopranos scale, so it's better than 90% of everything else on TV. I could put on an episode of This Is Us, which is a show that I've never even been interested in watching. But if Sterling K. Brown is doing a scene, at least Sterling K. Brown can fucking act. Sorry. So that's the way I feel about it.
I something you said, Paul, when we first started talking about this really stuck with me, about how you think about Omar on The Wire, and the fact that he's gay is the least exciting or interesting thing about him. And I've taken that to heart. I do agree, now that you're saying it, that I wish that maybe there was a little bit more of an allure for Johnny Cakes to make it just a little more believable. I'm just so used to also a romantic comedy where there's holes all over the place, and it's I don't know, I think of a movie like 27 Dresses, and it's you couldn't have said no to one of those brides, so and James Marsden falls in love with her because she's a people pleaser and wants to say, the only thing that's interesting about her is that she has been a bridesmaid 27 times, and somehow there's a movie. So so I'm maybe more conditioned to be kind of cool with that, even on The Sopranos, because I'm hooked at this point. I'm curious where it's going. Is this one of those times it works out on The Sopranos? I'm laughing through that sentence. Just because it doesn't work out for people.
Fair enough.
Not because I'm spoiling anything.
Listen, we're going to move on, but important and fun discussion. I'm happy we're able to at least kind of dig in and have that discussion. Your short answer, you're not the asshole for asking, Jordan.
Thanks.
It led to a good 10 minutes of podcast. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he saved the kid from the fire, and Vito is not only wowed by the by Johnny Cakes himself, but I think as he illustrates later on in the scene at the bar, it's the selflessness of the act that catches him off guard too, because he's coming from a very selfish cutthroat universe in New Jersey. So
Indeed.
Tony and AJ are fishing on the boat, slamming back a few beers, having a good time.
What a transition, by the way. Just save a child from a burning house. And then these two slobs on the Stugatz too.
AJ brings up Uncle June. What are we going to do about him?
What are we going to do about it?
Right, exactly. He's incarcerated. I love this line, for the rest of his unnatural life. So fuck him. He's a walking corpse. AJ tries to keep pushing. Certainly nothing for you to worry about. Well, all right. Well, maybe that'll be the end of it then. Tony, Patsy and Bert going through the Northward Merchants Protection Association. This is a transitioning, not to denigrate anyone, guys, but this is a transitional neighborhood. There's a lot of marginal types. Your weekly dues to us, etc., and so forth. We talked about this already, but yeah, this guy just explains, listen, every last coffee bean is accounted for. This is the corporate model. It's all computerized. It's all, everything and everybody is replaceable. It's a at this point, this guy's lucky if he's getting $20 an hour in 2006 to be the manager of this place.
Oh, hey, but in 2024, he's still making probably just under $20 an hour.
But they go through the protection racket playbook. What if the window were to break? Wink, wink. Oh well, they'll just got 5,000 stores in North America. What if the manager say was assaulted? A little more forward, and he just has to explain, I can give you what you want, but then they're just going to put someone else in here. What an interesting conundrum when they come out, and it's over for the little guy. These guys, because the little guy, quote unquote, is getting crushed economically, it's affecting the blue collar gangsters. Like, even they're not safe from...
Even the mom and pop shakedown operation is getting squeezed out.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What
the
a
working
fun
class
take.
has already been shaken down. There's nothing left to shake.
It's kind of like that movie Hustlers with Jennifer Lopez, where it's like, I never thought about how the 2008 crash affected strippers. Like, you never think about how corporate America affected the mob, Right.
And that's why I like that movie. Just that reason.
The guys are chatting outside Satrial's. This is a fun little scene between Tony, Chris, and Silvio. Chris brings up Vito again, and
But for political correctness.
I like that.
Love that.
Kill a guy over political correctness. And then Tony describes his libido. He's got a baguette 24/7. Very funny imagery there. Chris makes a crack at Silvio. And then Julianna Skiff, played by Juliana Margulies, very talented actress, comes strolling up. I could do that, no problem, Silvio says. She approaches, and Tony wants to speak with Tony. They go inside.
He's got a type, doesn't he?
He certainly does.
Yep.
He certainly does. She is right in his wheelhouse, and that's kind of the idea. His libido's back, and he's presented with this woman who,
And this is it's an easy one right up the middle, Tony. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Just ring the dinner bell on that one.
Cannoli? But this poultry joint, Caputo Poultry, wants to get replaced by Jamba Juice wants to buy it. The area is on an upswing, $175 per square foot, $315,000. Tony has an interesting line as a businessman. I think later on he says, "A businessman, I got to tell you that property is going to be worth, 10 times more in a couple of years." And boy, he's not wrong. When I heard this price for this retail storefront, $315,000.
Nah.
Oof, Madonna mia, holy cow! That's
more than 10 times that now, right?
That's
Probably.
at least $750,000 mil
Yeah.
for that spot right now, at least.
This part of Newark that they end up talking about, the North Ward, is real.
Yeah.
I thought it had been some kind of fictionalized part of another city, but it's real. That I looked it up. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Tony talks about he made the trek up Guinea Gulch. Funny wording there. His eggs and chickens taste better than any you get in the supermarket. He extols the virtues of this place, that it'd be a real loss for the neighborhood. For a second, you almost wonder, is Tony going to be our blue collar hero here? he's torn a little bit here. The roots and the price is not right. Well, so then she says, "You're not interested." "Oh, I am, but the price is a little low, and it would be a real loss for the neighborhood." Is he going to hold out? We learn a little more about Julianna. She came from Binghamton. She uses an interesting phrase here, and I'm going to piece together some other things that happened later on in the show. But, quote, "low tolerance for boredom." That's an interesting line there. Don't want to sell under the guy. So, right now, no deal. But there's clearly a spark of attraction there, and we end the scene. Any thoughts on this little scene between Tony and Julianna? I think they have a good chemistry.
For sure. Well, actually, just to go off what Paul just said, Tony has a type. I could not even think of another actor more his type than to play this role than Julianna Margulies playing. Another young, pretty, dark-haired woman who seems like she has some world weariness or world knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of walks in, has the sense, I should even say the scent of a troubled past, maybe. Right? It's not even like a type at this point. It's just like, it's almost like there is a sign point here. Be like, "All right, Tony, your next mistress is on schedule. Here you are, sir." Mm-hmm. Right? This is the language that the show has taught us so far, right?
Mm-hmm. And he has been, by virtue of his own biological healing and his maybe change in life philosophy, knock on wood, but he has been faithful to Carmela since the shooting, which is why this is suddenly becoming more interesting than his usual dalliance. There wouldn't be a doubt in any of our minds where this is going prior to the shooting. But now there's a question. Where is this going? So.
Well, to be fair, until the day before, he hasn't been able to be...
Correct.
He's been tested for 24 hours.
Correct.
And initially, she's kind of reticent. We'll get to that in the next scene, but that's a fun aspect of it, too.
Back in New Hampshire, I like this scene mostly because of the guy in the background who keeps interjecting and has this... just so happened to have this knowledge on... what's the boxer we're talking about here?
Rocky Marciano.
Rocky Marciano. Yeah. Just so happens to have taken the train to see him in Chicago, and you should interview me.
You can't talk about one without the other.
But Vito's writing a book. That's the cover story here.
And we know the guy likes him immediately because he went home after talking to him about the book and looked up the guy Vito was writing about, that Vincent was writing about. Come on, he likes him.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was before Wikipedia. Or at least before it got big.
Yeah.
That's correct. Must be lonely being a writer. He's sending out a little signal. He later on talks about getting the reciprocating signal, so he's putting out a vibe here. His kids come in, so he's got kids. "Don't mess with my glue gun," I think tells the kids. And then we're back in Jersey. Tony walking around through the North Ward, this old neighborhood. I'm not going to quote her, but this woman, Mrs. Conti, is quite a character. Just one of these old Italian ladies, probably been here for generations. Sitting outside. And
no better neighborhood watch than that lady.
Right, yeah, exactly. I guess those are Puerto Ricans, Miss Conti. I guess the Puerto Rican young ladies up the street playing the music told her to go fuck herself. And Tony's tells her, yeah, I'll see what I can do. Goes down to Caputo's.
Say hi to Junior.
Yeah, right.
Whoopsies.
Goes to Caputo's, chicken or the egg. But this place looks legit. This is one of those old school places. If I had a place like this in my town, it would be like, holy shit, that's a special thing these days.
I would be heartbroken if something like this in my town closed.
Correct.
Yes, for a Jamba Juice.
Especially for a Jamba Juice. The Jamba Juice is actually pretty good on the record.
No.
But there's places for it.
Right.
And it's
But
not,
also,
not in the poultry
like
shop.
Subway stations.
That's right.
and-
When the mom and pops close down more and more, it's not another mom and pop or an independent that takes over. It's Jamba Juice or something else that makes... Well, Tony references it. America, more and more, it looks all the same. It looks like the monoculture. Right.
Yep. But business is better than ever, which is, again, also a unique situation. A lot of mom and pop places are suffering, but this place is kicking ass. It's not even like this Jamba Juice offer would be saving this guy, like, ooh, get out while you can kind of thing. No, business is booming. People love these fresh eggs and these chickens, and I mean, if this guy were selling these fresh eggs during COVID, he'd be fucking loaded. But anyway.
Eggs are still expensive now.
Yeah, that's true. No kidding. We get this scene of how AJ behaves himself at work. I don't particularly...
Reminded me of Randall from Clerks.
Yeah.
Just rattling off all the porn titles in front of that mother and her kid.
Yeah, they're having this knife fight using very vulgar language in front of this woman who's got the kid. Perfectly cast, this woman, by the way. Mm-hmm. Just this put-upon mother who is very obviously annoyed but doesn't want to say anything, but is like, do you mind? They're having this stupid fight about the knife. Like, either of them would last 2 seconds in any knife fight.
As we will see.
Yeah. And the kid mentions that Hernan, who AJ's hanging out with, he was such an asshole.
Right.
But they always pick on the underclassmen. But later we get the sense the kid is a fucking creep. Right. And we also get a sense of why he keeps AJ around.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
AJ's covering tonight. He's, quote, totally fucking minted because he's going to sell the drums. And we're back in therapy. Tony, his dad would have kicked his lazy ass out of the house. Can you empathize with AJ at that age? There were different times. I didn't vegetate. These are different times. Young people are bombarded with so much information. Adulthood is... 26 is the new 21. Tony ends the scene by saying, I'm 46, so does that make me 35? Melfi being a good therapist here. Another touchdown scene. These therapy scenes seem to be fewer and far between and very short. But Melfi doing her job here, doing a good job, trying to get Tony to look at it. And this is something that's been going on lately in modern times where it feels like what Melfi's saying rings true to me, that adulthood now doesn't feel like adulthood when we were kids.
Yeah.
I when I think of what people look like in their 30s when I was a little kid versus what they look like now, even like people just felt older then. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I think there's a lot of causes, sociological causes and internet and everything. There's a reason for this.
And the fact that high school qualified you for a job back then.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot to that.
Tony in therapy is talking about AJ essentially not growing up quickly enough. It cuts to Melfi in her therapy talking about how her dad is regressing into old age too fast. And then Kupferberg brings up Tony, kind of like Melfi's kid.
Yeah.
She's always got to take care of. She gets mad. I love that.
Yeah. No, that's a great little scene with Elliot, who we haven't seen in a while. And I like that he just brings it up and he has to race to justify it because she calls him out completely correctly that he has a tabloid interest in this. But she says something very interesting. He refuses to engage with the trauma caused by the uncle, and it's just a matter of time before he completely decompensates. This isn't omerta, it's something else. Omerta, of course, being the mafia code of silence. Elliot poses that this omerta concept comes from a pre-therapeutic culture, but she says this isn't omerta, this is something else. A very interesting line there, and kind of offers a dim view of Tony's trajectory, doesn't it? Because we've spoken that there's something different about post-shooting Tony. He's still a gangster, but there's something softer, a little more laissez-faire. We're wondering, is he going to, is he not going to with Julianna? But Melfi seems to pose that until he meaningfully engages with what happened to him, he is going to decompensate, whatever that means. But certainly doesn't bode well, does it? The scene I mentioned earlier, Tony staring out the window at the drums, he's very clearly a little hurt by this. AJ bawling in the club, just absolutely dropping major money here. This club scene that AJ spends his time in is like my personal hell.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, 1,000%.
I hate this shit. This kind of thing, this kind of money for bullshit, and this whole scene. We meet Hernan, who, given the choice between an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, picks the 15-year-old.
What a great way to communicate that the guy's a piece of shit.
Right.
Like, really fast.
Yeah. Paul pointed out that this kid would go on to play Lucky Luciano in Boardwalk.
Great
which
actor.
I actually
Yeah.
that
Yeah, his performance in Boardwalk's quite good.
it's stellar. Yeah, he does really excellent work in that show, but good for him. The guy who runs the club asks AJ to give his regards to his dad when he brings the check, and AJ has to give him an extra $200 just for relaying the message. But everybody in the club is looking for a handout from AJ, and it's all about his dad, and you can see it registering on AJ's face as the episode progresses that he's living in Tony's shadow in this world, and he has no identity for himself, really.
Oh, and it's sad, right? When you put it in context with the drums, because Tony probably feels hurt about the drums because that's not something his dad could have or would have ever done for him. So that was probably a point of pride of like, I work really hard for this, albeit illegitimately, but like I work really hard for this. This was something I could give to you, and you're just selling it for whatever you're going to do with it. But on the other side,
For one night in this club, by the way, $1,500 for the drums was what Tony originally spent.
So, and it was more than that because it was like an $1,800 bill,
yeah.
plus the $200 that he gave, whatever tip he gave on top of it. So, but on the other side, AJ can't get out of his dad's shadow because he's not working for it and because he's not in the life. So it's not that I feel bad for him for that necessarily, but that I think that's an interesting conundrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's either living up to this image or in some cases being asked to hand out money like his dad. It's one end or the other. He's getting stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to point out some geography for our fans who are overseas or maybe have never been in the New York, New Jersey area. If you're wondering what it means for Phil Leotardo to track down Vito and get this quote-unquote settled, or handled, rather, he drove from Brooklyn to Paterson, New Jersey, Lou Costello Memorial Park, at night to ask about it. And that is not an easy drive. That neighborhood at night is a little troublesome. There's been some issues over there. So this means a lot to Phil. Tony and Phil are meeting.
In terms of time, we're talking probably 45 minutes or so each way, but the neighborhood, the bridges, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
It's a crazy length to travel just if this was their thing that he wanted to talk about.
Right.
He dishonored me personally.
Yeah. And, of course, the line going back, we haven't really seen Johnny Sack since the wedding, but how's John? I don't know. Fine, through his veil of tears. Jesus. Vito, what's being done about that? None of your business. I'm supposed to put out an APB on the guy because he takes it up the ass. It's a victimless crime. Marie is a victim. Her children are victims. In your Father's Day, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Phil makes a threat, basically.
Phil pushes a lot of buttons on purpose.
Yes. Yeah, he knows this is a...
Also, this is many times now they've encountered, Tony does not like being treated like he is younger than Phil. Mm-hmm. And bringing up Tony's father, the specter of Tony's father, is very disrespectful.
Yes.
Right.
And he says to him, I swallowed my pride when your murdering fuck of a cousin killed my brother Billy. Don't think I'm going to do it twice. And Tony has to throw water on that immediately. Listen, Phil, let's not make a problem there isn't one. Fundamentally, we're in agreement, but I'll handle it. It smooths things over in the moment, but you have to think a part of Phil is thinking, oh, like you handled your cousin.
Right.
This is yet another thing that Phil sees as his problem, that Tony is going to step in and do it his way.
This is, to me, the most brilliant part of the Vito storyline. Because even though, they obviously just made up at some point that Vito's gay, they just made it up between 5 and 6 that Vito and Phil are related by marriage. But even still, it's a brilliant coup of a story idea, I think, because Phil would take it personally. Mm-hmm. And it complicates business at this high level between New York and New Jersey, which was, for a minute there, fairly stable. Great idea.
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, Tony and Phil were, working things out in the back of the Bing pretty amicably, actually. They were, even though Tony took a loss, Chris asked him, why are you always caving to this guy? It's a strategy, whatever. But the point is they were getting along, and now this is just a dumb enough issue to cause a dangerous level of friction.
Yeah. Right.
If only Phil just minded his business.
Yeah.
But, you know.
AJ getting a rub down from this chick he met in the club. She's a moron.
His friend's off getting a blowjob in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just absolute debauchery at the nearby hotel, whatever. I'll probably have to do something. You're so intense.
Gross.
But hey, this is. I really feel for AJ here, man. He's kind of what a shitty. I feel like claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Just like living under the weight of this and having to answer for it, and it's a shitty situation. It's really. I feel for him. Thad McCone gets his phone stolen.
No, this town's not real. No one's named Thad McCone. It's not a real name.
Well, he's not from that town either. He's staying at a B&B.
Thad McCone's not someone's name. That's not a thing. Not a thing.
Yes, it is. I know a Thad McCone.
Oh, I'm sure.
Some
I
guy.
know 3 Thads, personally.
We might run into some disagreement here, but Vito calls home. I actually was moved by this scene. I thought this was probably Joe Ganascoli's finest moment in the show so far. I actually thought he did a beautiful job with this scene.
His wife does a nice job, too.
Yeah. Marie Spatafor is played very well by Lorraine Bracco's sister.
Right.
And pleading for him to come home. She even offers to come out there, which, were it not for the it's complicated, he says. The complication, of course, being Jim. But, there's...
Oh, you think that's the complication?
Oh, no. The complication... Oh, yes, that's a complication.
Why can't he just bring her and the kids out here?
Because if anybody finds out where he is, they'd follow her, Phil's cousin. That's the whole thing.
But if she just didn't tell anybody and just up and vanished, they wouldn't know where she is.
I
The complication is that he has feelings for somebody up there.
I think that's also true, but there are many problems if she were to go up there.
Correct. You think she's gangster savvy enough to get up there without anybody knowing with kids?
Probably not. She brings up these church groups.
Track her color.
Church groups, they can cure you of this. At least Vito's smart enough to know he absolutely under no circumstance can trust Phil. That's good. But yeah, he says hi to his son, can't handle it, and hangs up. I thought this was a well-acted scene. Tony meets Julianna at the Bing. Very interesting. Another thing I'm going to point out. I'm putting the pieces together on something here, but when offered a drink, there's a longer than normal pause. Sure, ginger ale and lime juice. Mm-hmm. I'm getting...
Recovered.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right? I'm not crazy, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that to me...
Better. It would have been a better indication of just not ordering anything at all.
Right.
That you just didn't want to have a drink then, but to specifically order something non-alcoholic.
Yeah,
At
like
a
a mixed drink that isn't... Yeah, exactly. So that little flag there.
Well, and she ends the scene by referencing a wanting to engage in self-control.
Yeah.
Not
exactly
as if it's not her long suit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another, pointer.
They've upped the offer, $225 a square foot. Tony drops the line, in 10 years that property will be worth twice as much. Everything in America, and I agree with him here fully, everything in America looks the fucking same, your bed, bath, and whatever. But he makes the proposal. I find you very attractive. When you're in, he drops the whole, makes a very compelling case. When you've been through something like I have, he's using it to lure her rather than as his reason to stay faithful, which is an unfortunate twist in the formula. I'm engaged, I'm married, I'm very attracted by you, I appreciate life, you should do what makes you happy. But she says, I may have taken you up on that, but for once in my life I'm going to exercise some self-control. She walks off and Tony is staring at that stripper like... He is just... I'm just going to say it. He's very horny. He just the eyes he makes at that stripper when she walks out. He's not only horny, but sexually frustrated. He referred to fighting with AJ as no kind of aphrodisiac. We're back in New Hampshire. Vito gets invited over to hang out with the gay fireman. He's a very funny guy. Wink. And they're making eyes over the table while everyone else is chatting. So Jim goes for it. They go outside. They talk about the motorcycle, the ride, and how beautiful it is. There's nothing else like it.
This might be the biker thing with Vito, and like a Village People kind of vibe, where it was actually trying to take back some macho imagery for gay people. So when they get into this fight, and it's something. There's something between the fighting and the fucking that's very close in proximity.
Yes,
Vito wants that tough guy thing.
Well, there's also I didn't mention it last time we talked about this because I couldn't think of the artist's name, but there's also the Tom of Finland whole aesthetic. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but it's stuff like this.
What, the leather daddy stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but it does mix kind of the like rough, tough kind of rough housing with the leather daddy with all of that. So it all kind of makes sense. It's all very erotic.
You touched on that during the
yeah. Just I thought of the actual name of the artist. So it's not even just Village People kind of hokey. There is like not that I think Vito knows Tom of Finland necessarily,
right.
but that aesthetic, that fetish is all very legit.
Interesting little note talking about the selflessness and the integrity of Jim when he saves the kid. What turns Jim away from this moment isn't the fight. It's when Vito goes for the pipe. It says, dirty fighter, huh?
Yeah.
Asshole, and speeds off. That's what does it for him. So you're dealing with somebody who has a degree of integrity here. And that's a new thing for Vito. But he rides off. This might have been salvageable up until Vito went for the pipe.
Phrasing.
Yep.
Tony's eating a salami sandwich.
Sorry. Now it's out there and
that's it.
Yep.
I did it.
And Carmela, very sweet moment here, tells him that you didn't even notice. It's low fat, low sodium. You know, you're always looking out for me. I'm lucky to have you. Don't you forget it. That's very sweet. Very sweet, loving, caring for each other kind of dialogue. Prince Albert, you know what time it is? He asks for money for living expenses. What do you think clothes are? Well, his clothes are old, and we know what he's spending the money on, so it's hard for us to watch him gaslight Tony and Carmela this way. Hernan, he's a creep. He's not a creep, he's my friend. Paul, what's the exchange there we love so much?
Carmela's talking about Hernan's mother was in like the PTA, so Carmela had heard. She says, Hernan is reading disabled.
Fuck that.
Tony just saying fuck that murders me every time. Because, exactly. Fuck that.
But you know what? AJ brings up something here. You should stake me in a club. And it's a big shock. You've never even been a busboy. Carmela brings back up event planning. I love AJ. Why do you keep talking about event planning? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. Something she got in her head a while ago now.
Yeah. Back in season 5, she heard that, and when he was throwing those parties.
Yeah,
and
when he was like
everything.
charging for drinks at lawn parties.
Yeah.
Event planning.
Why are we even talking? Tony offers, if you're serious, I'll get you a job at Beansy's. It's a fucking pizza parlor. He's not interested.
And Carmela wants him to go back to school.
Yeah, why are we even talking about this? You're going back to college next semester. And AJ just storms out. You never support me in anything I want to do, which you can see why that comment cuts to them, because they want to support him. The problem is he's full of shit, and he's like it's hard. Like, you want to nurture his interests, but I thought Tony's offer was fair. Looking at it objectively, like if I had a 20-year-old kid who was asking, I had the money to stake him in a club, I'd be like, learn it from the ground up. I don't think going to a club qualifies you to run a club. So
Certainly not.
No. So if you're serious, I thought Tony's offer was actually quite good, but he leaves and Tony floats it. Hey, well, maybe we stay after he talks about how demoralizing it is. Well, maybe we stake him in a club. Maybe he'll rise to the occasion.
What a stupid fucking thing.
I can see why that idea might come to you, but Carmela really has to drag him back down to earth. He's not even legal drinking age. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, also, Tony, the last person you get a club to, it didn't work out too well.
Yikes. Correct. Also, it's interesting with AJ because what does he want to do? Because
Lost.
He's so lost because, Tony and Carmela so badly didn't want him in the family, capital F, that they kind of just pushed him toward this thing that he wasn't meant for the way Meadow is. And so, like, other than being a delinquent, like, what is there? He's had no chance. I don't feel entirely bad for him because he's a nightmare, but I also feel bad for him because he hasn't had much of a shot in terms of, like, figuring what that is.
He doesn't have much ambition. He just doesn't.
Correct.
If he wants to be a gangster like his dad, which I don't think he wants to be, I think he feels more pressured to go and to do something there.
No, I don't think he does either.
For a 20-year-old in 2006 with no ambition and someone who's not really good at anything, this lifestyle isn't. I can see somebody being like, "Hey, work at Blockbuster, sleep till noon, do the club thing, lay around watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force, go to work." It's not. It's like it's nothing special, but it's not the worst in the world. I mean, the money he's dropping at these clubs is obscene.
Also, I don't and never have thought that Tony and Carmela are particularly good parents. They're loving parents. They had one daughter that was honestly pretty easy. She was, as we well analyzed in our early seasons, mostly a self-motivated self-starter. She had great ambitions towards several different things, and she's very, very smart. They had one kid who was basically the opposite of that. Someone who was delinquent, not good in school, had no sense of direction, no particular set of interests, right? And with that kind of a kid, and I say this as an educator too, you kind of have to shove them along into something. Okay? You have to parent at some point and say, you might not like this for now, just do this till you figure out something better. And they're just kind of letting him float. They've been letting him float.
Yeah, they tried a little bit with Blockbuster, but that's probably not the right job for that.
And they're not trying hard enough.
They're not.
The only male model that he's ever had is his dad, and it's like under no circumstances should you go near this life. So the kid is wayward, and I mean, there's perfectly good reason, because it seems he would never make it. You see what happens when he's on the ward? He is not on the floor restrained for more than 5 seconds before he starts telling them everything about why he's there. I'm like, kid, shut the fuck up. They got the knife out of his hand. He's like, it shot my dad. I'm like, why are you talking? Doesn't have any instinct for this.
Yeah.
Right.
He wasn't raised to.
You also think about our conversation from Luxury Lounge about those who play by the rules versus those who kind of defy the rules, and he's only seen really Tony defy the rules. I mean, I guess he's seen Meadow play by the rules, and that's kind of working out for her, but he doesn't have the same kind of ambition. He wants I don't want to start from the bottom. I don't want to be a busboy or work at a pizza shop. I just want to be the owner, right? But he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have the chef skills that Artie has to even get that going. Right. And he doesn't have his dad's gangster savvy to be above the rules. So he floats in the middle.
And why does he want a club? It's not to be a successful entrepreneur. It's so people will think he's cool.
Correct.
Right? That's not a good reason to want anything.
Yeah. Well said, guys. Tony's back in therapy. It's like a bad smell in the house. Arguing with AJ is no kind of aphrodisiac. Couldn't blame a guy for seeking some extracurricular activity, but of course it's theoretical. The way she nursed you back to health, you think I'm gonna fucking betray that? Interesting. He's been honest with Melfi about his infidelity before, so I don't know how seriously to take this, but he was actively pursuing it a scene ago and is now telling her that he would never betray Carmela.
I think he likes the illusion that he's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's true or not.
Right. Tony says, can you just give me some practical advice for once? And what the fuck do I do about my son? And she says, it's reasonable for you to tell him that you have expectations of him. And
yes.
Yes, and especially if he's living at your house. It'd be one thing if AJ was being a bum somewhere off in his own place and never really came around. That would be one thing. But I'm fully with Melfi here. Set rules, set some ground rules. And immediately Carmela walks in at the next scene and drops a stack of money for clothes, for job interviews, college. This is not for personal entertainment. Sure.
The way he says thank you for that money, it's in such a pissant little way, too.
Ugh.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
And I think he spent it on the poppers in the next scene. But
Right.
that's a little stare down at the diner. Vito walking past, makes eye contact with Jim. We're going to come back to it.
Nicely shot.
Beautifully shot. Yeah. AJ's doing drugs in the bathroom. Some guy wants his dad to invest in sports drink. At first, AJ thinks he's telling him for him, but then he's like, we'll show something to your dad. So AJ's still going through this kind of whirlwind where he's, nobody really gives a shit about him except for the fact that he's Tony Soprano's kid. So he tells Carmela, wake me up tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Vito's sitting through the tedious conversation at the bed and breakfast, and it's designed to be tedious. This is not
funny.
This is not where he wants to be having his breakfast.
Right.
Carmela has to get AJ up. 2 hours later, as I woke you up 2 hours ago, again, he's hanging out in front of the TV at 4 o'clock.
This is one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen, I think.
What?
Him not going to do this.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Him, fucking around for half the day, as you guys alluded to, his lostness. I remember watching this 20 years ago and being like, why are they doing this with him just, lazing about? I'm like, this is awesome. This kid, trying to do anything but the thing that he thinks will somehow make him whole.
Right.
It's sad and weird and pathetic and funny.
Mm-hmm. And he's lost he's lost the immediate push for it because Tony's come through, right? It's one thing when he's standing over his comatose father and he's swearing that he'll get Junior for this. He has that immediate impulse. He goes to try to find the gun. Had he gotten the gun, who knows what would have happened. It probably a similar result, but just with a gun instead of a knife. But this is not... He has to self-motivate for this. And he knows deep down that it's not something that he's suited for. But...
He doesn't have his dad's toughness.
Right.
But he has his dad's anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think, when Carmela says to him, wasn't there something you were supposed to do today... He can just run the script through his head. I'm nothing unless I do this. I'm nothing unless I do this.
Yeah,
right.
That's it. So he gets that knife out of his drawer and he goes, we're cutting to Junior. He's going for it. Junior's feeling cranky about his mail. They throw my mail out. The guy tells him, try starting a correspondence.
So sad.
It is very sad. And what's really sad, too, is Junior is so diminished at this point that before this and after this, this is the only scene we get with him. Junior's reaction to this is inconsequential because he's tucked away and cut off from everybody.
Right.
And he's as the Italians would say, he's cabatos at this point. He's probably going to wake up tomorrow and not even remember that any of this happened. Possibly, very, very possibly. So that's even sadder. Is the fact
does he think it's a young Tony who walks in?
Anthony.
I thought so.
Yeah, my nephew.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have called AJ Anthony.
Yeah.
Right.
He comes in, he's panicked, he's very obviously nursing something, drops the knife, and Paul, you hit the nail on the head too as far as him not being sued for this. He's screaming, he shot my dad, he shot my dad. A good defense lawyer, had he kept his mouth shut, could say nobody was attempted to be murdered here, he just had a knife on him and it fell out. He didn't go after him, he didn't lunge at him, there was no... But AJ, of course, outs his intent.
Right.
Screaming, he shot my dad as he's being tackled.
Yeah, also, what was the plan here? He was just going to, stab Junior in front of everybody and then go to jail?
Right.
Was that his plan? I think he only had the plan worked out to, I'm going to take this knife. I'm going to stab Junior. Profit.
Right.
He doesn't have it worked out beyond that. How are you getting out of this? What are you going to say happened? Are you going to go to jail forever for murder? The fuck?
Yeah.
And Tony tries to shake this sense into him after the fact, but I can't believe AJ... I should say I should believe AJ, but I really can't believe AJ is that stupid.
Well, I think that's part of what Tony...
Well, here's the real question, too, though, right? Is AJ just stupid, or is there something wrong with AJ? Right? But that's the vibe I'm starting to get. Because there are plenty of stupid people that don't try this shit.
That's a great question. Tony picks him up. Yeah, Assemblyman Zellman called.
Hey, Zellman with the assist. I guess those 30 lashes have proceeded into his mind.
And this scene is just straight fire. This is to me. This is
Great,
obvious. This is
great
obviously
scene.
the best scene of the episode. Tony just fucking loses it on him. Especially when he's what I love what triggers Tony's physicality is, and we talk about AJ not being that smart, or maybe there's something like wrong inside of him deeply. Yeah. Just like my stomach hurts, and that's what triggers Tony. Is just like, you fucking idiot, come here, and just throws him up against the car. Do you understand what could have happened to you if we don't have connections? Some cop goes by the book and they charge you with attempted murder. Junior shot you, so what? It's a great scene. I'm not going to go through it line by line here, but just powerful, powerful stuff. And Tony, there's something really powerful this far in the show that Tony is at the point with AJ now where he has to say it's wrong. And it only lingers for a moment because he has to elaborate. His next line is not, it's morally wrong to stab somebody. It's morally wrong to kill Junior. It's not in your nature.
Yeah.
Right.
It is in Tony's nature. And when he's that's the sad part is for a split second you're thinking, oh my God, Tony just vocalized that it's wrong to kill people. It's wrong to get revenge and do that. No, it's wrong because AJ doesn't have it in him. And Tony knows that. It's against his nature. That's dark, but it's also great drama. And AJ just, Tony's reaction to AJ talking about this Godfather thing and sit there with your bowl of ice cream and say it's your favorite scene of all time, and Tony says, AJ, you make me want to cry. It's a movie. You got to grow up. You're not a kid anymore. And he starts dry heaving. But man, what a roller coaster of a scene. It's hard to watch.
Scene. There was one part of Tony's little speech that really caught me because I thought I saw something in Tony's eyes. He says, some cop goes by the book and they charge you with attempted murder. You hear me? Attempted murder, then what? Then what? And then AJ, he shot you. You're going to let him fucking get away with it? Tony, I told you that's my business, not yours. And what did you do? Nothing. Zero. A big fucking jerk-off. And I thought, would you have actually had a little bit more respect for AJ had he killed Junior and gotten away with it? That seemed to be the implication.
Yep.
Right? There's something there, like, if you had done this and killed him and maybe gotten away with it, then we could be talking right now. But you didn't. You're a zero. Nothing. You can't do this, right?
There's frightening.
There's an implicit challenge there. Really interesting. Love it.
I think that's a brilliant point, and it's also part of the reason that I chose the quote that I did for our pull quote. You got to grow up. You're not a kid anymore. Again, it's tough because you're trying to impress this on him, but of course you use the connections that you have to pull him out of this, so that a cop doesn't go by the book and the kid gets charged with attempted murder. Similarly, I think there is an implicit challenge. Tony doesn't want his kids to be like him. He resents that they often push back against him because what he does and how he does it allows for the life that they have, both of them. And that leads us right to the end of the scene. AJ starts dry heaving. Tony's had enough. Get in the car. The car. And when they do get in the car, rewind for a minute, the end of the scene with Melfi. Melfi says, it's important that you and Carmela do not undercut each other. First thing, your mother does not find out about this.
Right.
Understandable why, but it's the same problem that is going to recycle itself.
Here's the thing. Where your mother's not going to find out about this isn't for AJ's benefit.
That's right.
It's for his own.
Yep, right.
Because if Carmela hears about this, the blame goes right on Tony. She's not going to come down on AJ for that.
Yeah.
Tony knows that's going to fuck him and Carmela up.
Yeah. Also, I love invoking that particular scene from The Godfather. I think that is just,
it's the scene where Michael proves himself. It's the scene where
Right.
Pacino proved himself. That seems right.
Right. That's AJ sees that as like, this could be my stepping stone to something.
Well, and
right?
what a fright, especially for those who know the Godfather movies, particularly 1 and 2. 3 is a matter of personal opinion, but for those who know the Godfather saga, is there something wrong with AJ? I'll say this: he came away from the Godfather movies wanting to emulate Michael. Oof, brutal, just cold, loses everything. Just fucking, you know.
But also something to pocket, I think, for later, just fixating on that scene particularly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point. Also, on the question of AJ, look, AJ, we're going to get to how he still suffers panic attacks. He's prone to depression like his dad. And like Chris was in the last episode, he is mixing all this with hard drugs.
Yeah.
That you don't need a diagnosis of psychopathology for that to be a bad combination.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really bad.
Well, and zooming out a little bit to Sopranos as parents, right? Carmela already undercut Tony by giving him money for the suit without a discussion too. So like he is seeing it from both sides.
This next scene makes me physically ill. Tony is sitting in front of Satcher House looking at an absolute low, by the way. The depression on Gandolfini's face is just screams through the camera. Julianna calls him back. 275 square foot, 494,000. Tony's looking at $500,000 windfall here. Plus he gets to keep the note, which is a great tax benefit. And just waving at old Miss Conti across the street. Sold. Fuck. Awful. Caputo's is sold to Jamba Juice. Let's meet at your apartment instead. 9 o'clock. Now that the sale has happened and it's ready to close, Juliana's a little bit more open to it. Fine. Yeah. Great. Okay. And there's like a split second of, holy shit, am I actually doing this, when she hangs up the phone, but the meeting is set.
Yeah, you agreed to a 9 o'clock date. It's happening. It's 9 o'clock.
At her apartment.
You're not having dinner at 9 o'clock.
Yes. At her apartment that he remembered where it was. Final scene here before the, second to last scene here in New Hampshire. Vito goes back, orders his Johnny Cakes.
The tall stack.
The tall stack.
He's hungry.
He's hungry. Hungry for something more than those Johnny Cakes. Like Johnny Cakes.
He offers him coffee, and he takes him by the hand and says the line, sometimes you tell a lie so long you don't know when to stop, you don't know when it's safe.
Sorry.
What?
Nothing.
No, what's so funny?
That line!
That
line is funny.
Why?
It's a funny line.
I think it's kind of sweet.
It's not good. It's not good. That moment's not good. I want that moment to be good.
Make it good.
I can't. I need a good actor.
I can make it good. You got an eraser on you? Nailed it.
Nice.
I don't know. I disagree. This one, I like this one.
I feel like it's honest.
I feel like it's
He's never been safe to be.
Vito is an awkward guy. It's an awkward line, but he doesn't know how to be a gay man. What does that mean? Like that's crazy. I don't know. I'd like it.
I'm not mad at it.
We disagree. We don't disagree like this often.
I'm not mad at it. I think it's funny, but
I'm not mad either.
No, nobody's mad. We're having fun. But I don't know. I didn't mind it. I like it actually. I didn't just not. I liked it.
If we're going with the rom-com theme, it's the perfect line.
Yeah.
I wish you all could see Jordan's face. Oh man, that's funny.
A part of you actually wishes that scene was longer. To be honest, where does that conversation go?
To the meadow.
No.
time for talking is done.
Absolutely, but it's like one of those pretty rare instances where I'm kind of like, how do we get from there to there? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, they've already got the chemistry, right? I don't know. I buy it.
Yeah.
Carmela.
No, I'm not judging you. I'm judging the show.
Carmela pulls out the French blue, which she just ironed for him. This is again very sweet. She puts it on for him, helps him get it on, and a very smart, my handsome man. She's buttoning up his shirt. Very smart. And a very deliberate out-of-place shot. And unless you know where it's going, it catches you off guard. But this shot from Tony's point of view down at her hands buttoning up the shirt. We're going to come
right
back.
over the incision scar.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to that in a moment. Very well done, especially when they close the loop on it in the subsequent scene. But we get the beautiful motorcycle drive. Can't get used to this torque.
What? That is funny.
Yeah.
I can't get used to this torque. What?
And we get a little lakeside lovemaking. We close out the rom-com here with this moment.
Oh yeah, they're fucking.
Oh yeah,
dick is real good.
Yeah, it's got lots of torque.
Yeah, so it is hot.
He chromed out the handles. All right. We're gonna come back to that.
I believe the bike he rides is a Fat Boy.
Is it? Oh, that's fun.
I just pointed it out. Just they're just laying it on.
Tony and Julianna have this contract signing for the.
Nice.
Lily thinks it's sweet. I do too. These two actors do a wonderful job of making this very tense, and I love how much time the show spends. It's not a fake contract signing where you just get one line and then they're fucking. It's like they really take their time, sign here, initial here.
It's great, right?
It is,
and it builds the tension that there's so many things you have to friggin' initial.
And they want to jump each other.
Oh yeah.
And they gotta wait, and you could tell both of them are aching for it, but they gotta get through these papers, and then boom, they go for it.
I've seen this episode before. I had forgotten. It would have been one thing if they had been making out and she goes to undo the buttons and he says stop. That scene gets hot before he puts a stop to it.
Yeah,
He is ripping
right
her
there.
panties.
They're right there,
there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he is at the point where many would consider point of no return.
Yeah.
On top of him, straddling him, clothes are coming off, it's been hot and heavy, and we get that mirror shot of her undoing the buttons that Carmela just did for him.
Yep.
And he grabs her hands, stop, throws her off of him. Am I done? Done? I like her delivery there. Yeah, signing. Am I done? And grabs his coat. I gotta go. And walks out, and she immediately hits the champagne. Slams the rest of the glass down. Gotta say, we're a no spoiler show, so who knows where this is going. This is shocking development. Is it not?
It's a great scene. Real character development for Tony. You know, what version of Tony does this? I don't know.
Pretty wild.
Wild.
But well done.
And unexpected. I mean, the show still surprises you.
Mm-hmm. AJ is having a panic attack in the bathroom at this club. This guy who's a doctor comes in, asks about the various different things it could be. Well, do you have a history of panic attacks? Uh-oh. Ding, 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 ding. We got a winner. And then the episode ends on two very funny beats. This smoked turkey temper tantrum is fucking hilarious. He's just so frustrated. Carmela hears the slamming and the cursing. Tony is losing his shit. There's everything but fucking turkey in there. It's great. And Carmela, what the fuck is your problem? Just absolutely hilarious. But Tony
denied himself one aspect of appetite. Immediately went home, throws a shit fit because he can't fulfill the other. And earlier they had been talking about low sodium meat, and she's looking out for him, and now he's like a petulant child because the smoked turkey that he wants isn't there. It's great.
Yep. Yeah.
Fun. And then we cut to chickens.
Yeah. The chickens, man. Fucking Patsy Parisi's delivery on this gets me every time. Goddamn juice place moving in here. What Jews?
It's so good.
Not Jews. Jamba Juice. Great.
Fucking chickens flying around.
Yeah.
There.
Where's my fucking
Like a
eggs?
Muppet sketch.
I got a kid in college. Where are my fucking eggs? What the fuck is happening to this neighborhood? And that's a
great tag
on the whole episode. Any final thoughts on the close here and the episode as a whole?
Yeah, titled this episode Small Time. I think I was thinking of AJ when I thought of that, because it seems like maybe he could never amount to anything more than being a small-time crook. But also small-time was also thinking, small businesses, how they kind of eclipse into nothingness. This episode is so strange because there's a lack of fulfillment in so many of these narratives, right? Except in one in particular, right? So, Tony would like to have sex with Julianna. He doesn't. He can't find fulfillment there. AJ would like to kill Junior. Both these men would like to stab something with something, right? It's not happening, right? It does happen for Vito, right? But there is some consequence, yet unknown, hanging in the stars for Vito, right? So there's something to that too. There's the death knell continuing in the North Ward of this small town, small time community passing away into just the, again, homogenization of American small towns, just becoming all the same small town. But also something interesting here. At odds to that, Tony seems to be growing a conscience. Listen, part of me as a viewer really wanted to be titillated and really wanted him to see him having sex with Julianna. I wanted to see them naked. I wanted to see them doing that because it's exciting to me. Sometimes that's why you watch these shows, is for the sex, right? For the passion, for that expression of passion. But I was also kind of rewarded because actually the more interesting thing was that it didn't happen. And now I'm wondering, well, now where do we go? Fuck. Yeah. What happens in the absence of that? That's really interesting. But also equally interesting, in the plot I don't particularly care for, now that Vito has consummated a kind of relationship with Jim, where do they go from there? Right? That's also interesting. I'm really pleased with the direction the show is taking, and I know for a fact, 'cause I did do a little bit of reading about this episode, people were not particularly happy about this episode because people generally don't like the gay gangster storyline. But this episode's a lot more than that. And even the gay gangster storyline is still interesting, even if I don't like it. I don't have to like something for it to be interesting. Things can be interesting and I just don't happen to like it.
Wow.
I thought it was a really cool episode. It's a bridge episode in a lot of ways. There are storylines that I like more than others. I like the AJ storyline a lot more now than I did in years past. And I love the stuff with the North Ward. In the last episode that we recorded on Luxury Lounge, Jordan was talking about the little guy in another sense and how the gangsters are above them, but there are these pampered pets above the gangsters even. And here again, we get this image of the gangsters actually not as the big guy. They're the low-level shakedown as compared to corporate culture. And I find it fascinating that Tony decides to make the leap and just say, oh yeah, I'm on that corporate end. I'm selling out. And again, even though we might assume certain socially conservative or backward-looking things about Tony, he's not actually that sentimental. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Sell it out. Done.
He just needed to hit the right number.
Yep. So I continue to be compelled and fascinated, and like Jordan, by the ways in which they're telling stories differently, and they can still surprise. I remember watching the Julianna Skiff scene and really being shocked that Tony didn't go through with it the first time I watched it. So at a point in a series when typically it doesn't happen anymore, The Sopranos continues to surprise and delight. Can't say anything better than that about it.
Yeah, I feel the same. I really wish I had something more to add, but I think you both said it very well. I will say I also appreciate that there's no formula to this show. You don't really... There's never a point where it's like, oh, this is going to happen. All right, And sometimes that's fun in a show, where it's like, I think this is going to happen. Maybe it does. Maybe it's a little twist. But it's nice to have no idea what's coming next.
Well, and... very much like you guys said, I think one of the reasons that on a week-to-week basis why this episode may have frustrated... See, I think Season 6A, some of these episodes that leave us dangling like this, work better in a marathon-style watch when you're binging. Week-to-week...
It's hard.
This is great drama.
Yeah.
The reason it's frustrating is because a lot of these, you want to see, oh my God, what if AJ killed Junior? Oh, what if Tony fucks Julianna? And the viewer, in some ways, deliberately is left kind of in a frustrated, incomplete state, like our characters, except for Vito, in this episode. So
the show plays like gangbusters on streaming. It really does.
Yeah.
Because you could just,
But
Fell through, yeah.
So, good, solid outing. I thought there were some really, series best scenes, especially I think that Tony and AJ scene in the parking lot is a top-tier Sopranos scene any way you cut it. Great acting from those two. Robert Eiler continues to surprise and delight as the show does across the board. I'm looking forward to where this all goes. I think the next episode, without any spoilers, is a series favorite of mine. I cannot wait to talk about it with you folks. And I hope you enjoyed our coverage of Johnny Cakes. I'm Chris D'Amato.
I'm Lily D'Amato.
I'm Paul Mancini.
And I'm Jordan Hugh.
And we will see you next time for The Ride.
Got myself a gun.